Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparutade sangamatassa tawara ye sodavanta bamunjandu satang. So this opportunity to reflect on what you're hearing, what is being said. Reflecting is paying attention, listening, and being the witness of how it affects you. How you receive the words that come from my mouth. It's like this. And again, I remind you that this witness position, the Buddha position, is not a critic. It's just a witness, non-critical witness. So it's not about good or bad, true or false, right or wrong, but it's just listening to the experience of here and now, not as a participator in the experience, not a member of any group, but as a pure witness of the way it is at this moment. Because when we talk about experience, it's always here and now. So we experience life through this form that we call the body, ourselves, and it's a sensitive form in a sensual universe, meaning that it's about feeling. Sensitivity is about feeling, about happiness and unhappiness, or suffering and sorrow, grief, anguish, despair, or joy, or wonder, confusion, doubt, and worry. These are experiences that we have through these forms that we're very much identified with. So the human birth, meaning that when we were born, then we start experiencing the sensory world through this form, through the body. So this is a reflection on the way it is, because we tend to think of ourselves as the body. Our true nature is this physical form, and then we create ourselves as a separate person. We see ourselves as separate in form, and so we also create ourselves as separate personalities, individuals. We experience the differences, the dualities of experience through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, through the mind. So experience is always about change and impermanence. And the Buddha encouraged us to be the witness to change. All sankharas, all conditions are impermanent. Is not a judgment whether that's good or bad, right or wrong, but it's about the way it is, that we can actually be the observer, the witness. The judgments come when we start thinking, because thinking is dualistic. It divides into right and wrong, good and bad, true and false, male and female. And so everything that is sensory oriented has both its positive and negative aspects. But generally, people don't reflect in this way. They don't witness life. They experience life through their bodies and conditioned minds and wonder why they suffer. Because this dualistic, divisive tendency that we are very much attached to is, you can't just sustain happiness and goodness and fairness and justice as kind of permanent conditions. Because this whole planetary system that we're experiencing through these separate forms is in this inexorable process of change, which we can actually reflect upon. And then we ask ourselves, is there something that doesn't change? If everything's changing, what does that mean? Because change always implies birth and death, arising, ceasing. And so, how much longer will this planet last in the solar system or the sun? What'll happen when the sun burns out? Or when a meteor collides with the planet Earth and it blows up? So we can imagine a future occasion because of we believe in change in a very personal way. We take it very personally. Then, will our future generations, what will happen to them? And so you hear this on the media, about the economy, the climate change, the wars, and the future of future generations is something to worry about. Because the planet's never had this many human beings living on it at the same time. And there's all kinds of ominous signs of change that aren't particularly exciting to us or pleasing to us. And this is the realm of samsara, or the realm of change that we identify with and experience life through, the changing form. Then what doesn't change? When the Buddha asked us to investigate suffering, the causes of suffering, so then this is putting it, what can investigate? We can create theories about suffering with our intellect. So there's a lot of that, a lot of theories about the causes of suffering and who's to blame for this suffering that we experience. And we have relationships with others, and we they can be romantic and pleasant, or just terrible or horrible or traumatic. So when we try to find a permanent, happy relationship with somebody else, then we're demanding something in a possible situation. Or for the universe to stabilize into a permanent state of bliss and happiness and joy is wishful thinking, because the very nature of the universe that we experience through these forms is about birth and death. So just listening to this, like just the word death, what is that about? What happens when we die? When we think of ourselves as dying, then what what's going to happen to me when I die? Do I have a soul or something that will be reborn again? And then there's various theories about that. It can be complete wipe out oblivion, or there's theories about heaven and hell or reincarnation. And these are theories we create with our intellect to try to imagine what happens when our form passes away, when it ceases to operate, no longer the senses no longer operate, the internal organs cease. So reflecting on the sense of a separate self, as I've reflected on this many times, the Sakya Ditti, the first fetter or the ego, is this ignorant belief that what we are is the form, the physical form, male or female. This is what I am, because it's like I'm experiencing life through this form. So if anything seems to be me and mine, it's this body. So this identification, clinging to this assumption that I am of this physical form with its senses, then I live a life interpreting experience through the limitations of that perception. And so I start taking everything very personally. Success and failure, praise and blame. I see everything that happens to me in this form. I see it in personal ways because it's happening to me. This person sitting here. And so it is happening to me in that conditioned way of thinking. But that conditioned way of thinking is also very conditioned. It's the way we've been programmed, the way we've been programmed to interpret experience through this identity with the physical body, through the emotions we have, through the memories. So this causes conflict because we're all different in that way. We can't agree on everything because we see things from different perspectives. Because on the conditioned realm, the conditioning is not going to be a stable, firm, just and fair, righteous and moral conditioning. It's going to be dependent on so many other factors, that we have different cultures, different religious theories and views, different psychologies, different ways of interpreting experience. And so when we expect to find harmony and peace on the level of phenomena, then we're going to be terribly disillusioned and disappointed, because that's an impossibility. So the word in Theravada Buddhism, in Pali, the word anatta, non-self, is always a great mystery. Because if it seems anything more real to any of us, is it a sense of a self, as identified with the body, with the sensory experiences, with our emotions. If they seem very personal, emotions are very personal. And so we try to figure it out through the intellect. We go through psychoanalysis, various treatments to try to get the right view established, the sense of self-respect is encouraged, to be a morally trustworthy person is encouraged, to be honest and fair, to let go of anger and greed and jealousy and fear. And so these are various ideas that we oftentimes are conditioned by. So then the reality of experience is in this changingness that we can't stop. We can't stop change. Change is ongoing in this realm of samsara, or the worldly conditioned realm that we're very much conditioned to believe in. So it's a very interesting time now, and through the technology, internet, and various opportunities to encourage this reflective capacity. Because in ages of the past, in China, in Persia, in India, in Greece, there have been sages or individual human beings who have reflected on life, on experience, have, the philosophers, the sages of the past. And of course, they've tried to expound the Dhamma, or the truth, in the language of the time and the culture and the religious conditioning that they've been conditioned by, because that's what we know. We have to operate from the way we are. But there's always a perennial reality to wisdom. So we oftentimes turn to Buddhism or Vedanta or Taoism, Stoicism, Christian mysticism, various ways that people have developed in different cultures, different religious traditions, trying to express what is inexpressible. And in this tradition, Theravada tradition, this word anatta, non-self, is given great importance. So is it a doctrine? Is anatta a doctrine we believe in? There's absolutely no self? And that life is a delusion? And we come up, when logically speaking, when we talk about no self, it ends up as annihilation. Logically, it's annihilating the self. You've got to get rid of your ego. You've got to destroy it, and then you take that to its natural conclusion of suicide. Might as well commit suicide. Get rid of the form permanently. And that's the logic and reason. It's reasonable, it's logical, when you dogmatize anatta, not self. There's no self, there's nothing. There's no God. There's no life after death. There's no reincarnation. There's no rebirth. So this total negation ends up with a sense of futility and nothing matters. Or you take the opposite tendency of Dhamma Sukha Likkhanu Yoko in the first sutta that the Buddha delivered. he made it very clear it's between Gama Sukalikana Yoga and Attakila Matana Yoga. Gama Sukalikana Yoga is, enjoyment of the sensories. Life is to be experienced through drink and eat and be happy. Eternal life is just nothing but eternal joy and happiness. And it's the way we conceive it, through the way what we consider or conceive of eternal happiness. Now, can any of us really imagine eternal happiness? It's a beautiful concept. Eternal joy, bliss forever, is, on one level, quite an inspiring concept. If we're good and we're moral, we're fair and just, unselfish and kind, then we die, we live in eternal joy and bliss and happiness forever. But if we don't, if we're selfish and mean-hearted, immoral, then we go to the opposite of eternal hell, where suffering, miserable forms of suffering are forever. So this word forever, what is just another English word. But it means, in terms of time, forever means endless time. And this is what we identify with. We identify with time. That this form, sitting here on this seat, if I misbehave, then I go to hell and suffer eternal misery in an 89-year-old form. Or do I go back to being young again? Or is it what kind of form suffers eternally or is blissful and happy eternally? So we're reflecting on this. We're not denying or anything, but observing just the words we use, the concepts that we've been conditioned to believe, to grasp, need to be reflected upon. They are what they are. They arise and cease, the words, the concepts, the feelings they arouse in us. These feelings arise and cease. Birth and death happens all the time. But what is constant, what is stable through all this change that we experience through the form? Right now, at this very moment, sitting here in the temple, what is constant, that doesn't change, that's eternal, that was never born, never dies? And your thinking mind stops. You can't imagine that. You can't imagine that because your whole sense of a separate self is about imagination. So, not imagining, there's still conscious awareness. When your imaginary capabilities cease, then there's silence, peace. You can call it bliss or happiness if you want to have positive interpretations of it. So this is where we take the Puto position, the witnessing position. When we talk about meditation or bhavana, we're taking this stand, this position, like these Buddha rupas that you see in the temple are icons of that, the position of awareness here and now. So like the Buddha rupa behind me is is, an icon of that, of the eternal, now, present, witnessing, not judging. And I remember one time having an experience here in this very temple years ago, when we had this, when this Buddha Rupa arrived, and I was sitting in front of it, and it's rather big and slightly overwhelming, and I began to witness a sense of being judged by it. That my conditioning as a person, separate person, was God or a wise sage. All they do is pass judgments on you. And so, just even though I'd been a Buddhist for many years, meditating, I became aware of an old conditioned habit, being brought up as a Christian, of being judged all the time by God. And even though I no longer believed in God in the way I did when I was a child, I still had the remnants of that. It was conditioned. I wasn't born with that condition. And then a Buddha Rupa that's blessing. Like the Buddha Rupa, is he judging anyone in this room? Is that the mudra, a sign? Is he passing judgments on you? Any of you for any misdemeanors or wrongs that you've committed in the past or in the present? No, it remains equanimous, a blessing of Dhamma all the time. And this is changing the view of just how I interpreted an icon made out of bronze, covered in gold. This is where you begin to see through, witness the assumptions, the kind of latent, sleepy assumptions of your past as they manifest in the present. Then just seeing the Buddha Rupa as a blessing, then Buddha Rupas become very beautiful icons for me. I really like Buddha Rupas because they always remind me of that, of the blessing, of the Buddha blessing me rather than judging me. So in meditation, in bhavana, when we take the Puto position, we're actually witnessing things of the past that arise, the sense of a self, the fears, the resentments, the anxiety, the worries, the bitter memories, and on like that. And it's interesting when we first begin to take an interest in meditation, the first time we meditate is usually can be quite horrible because we don't know how to deal with, we have repressed and conditioned ourselves to operate from the conditioned perspective endlessly. So even meditation is another condition we're adopting. And when we talk about letting go and just sitting in silent awareness, then when we do, we can understand the words. But when we do that, then there's suddenly, you want peace and happiness. Instead, you get confusion or anger or fear. And so and then we see meditation as very difficult because we don't want any of that. I don't want to sit in a nice temple like this and just be filled with fear and anger and resentment. It's not nice, not pleasant. And meditation should lead toward peace and tranquility and happiness and bliss. So usually we begin with anapanasati, which is something to do to keep you busy, observing the breath, the nostrils, that point to the nostrils, being aware of the inhalation is like this, the exhalation is like this. Or we give a mantra, Bhutto, 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 or different mantras, there's so many. But they all tend to keep us busy thinking or doing something like witnessing, concentrating on breathing, which can lead to tranquility, but doesn't always work. So I remember years ago, a woman who lived in London had been meditating for 20 years, 30 years, and she learned the mindfulness of the breath, but she had a very busy job working in an office in London where she was constantly talking on the telephone, very busy business life, and when she would go home at the end of workday and try to meditate, she couldn't even concentrate on the breath. Her mind was so active, so busy, and so many problems at the office or with the people she talks to on the telephone. They're just trying to suppress all this mental, emotional activity through concentrating on the breath. She had really, most of the time she couldn't do it. Sometimes she actually could. Sometimes when her life wasn't so busy or that, and go on a meditation retreat, she could get really tranquil because the conditions would allow for that. So then we find that retreats, are very nice because it's all set up and we don't. Our daily life routine is no longer taking foremost importance in our lives. We're fitting into the schedule that's arranged for us. We eat at a certain time and meet and walk and sit and so forth. So then this is somehow we don't have to make decisions or go shopping or get caught up with emotional problems with our families or our colleagues. So we encourage noble silence. Everybody keep silent. Lock up your iPhone. Put away your iPad. No computers allowed. And suddenly all the distracting conditions that we live with are limited. And, and I'm sure many of you who teach meditation realize how, after the third day, people really begin to settle down. The first few days are a bit ropey, and people are very restless because their conditioned mind is still, worldly conditioned mind is still very active, even in a meditation hall. So why is it that we can't just switch off the confusion, the worry, the anxiety, the anger, the resentment, the fear, when we want to? Because the conditioned realm isn't what we are. We have, we're not any of those conditions. if they were ours, we'd have complete control over our emotions. We'd have complete control over the world around us. But because we are conditioned, phenomenal entities in a vast universe, and we are the way we are, we reflect on that. We begin to just be the puto, the witness, not the judge of what, that's about right and wrong. It's not about right and wrong anymore, good or bad, or wholesome and unwholesome, but it is unwholesome is impermanent, wholesome is impermanent. And this witness is conscious awareness, as simple as that. It's the experience of here and now, the reality of consciousness. So you're conscious. Now everybody in the temple here knows they're conscious. So that's a fact. We can start from there to know that consciousness is here and now. Just take that stand of consciousness here and now, stable and unchanging. It isn't judgmental. It hasn't acquired any language to develop concepts of true and false, right and wrong. It's peaceful when you begin to really trust it, trusting in awareness. And so the stability that we long for isn't found through the changing conditions that we're conditioned by or think with, but by the reality of the conscious reality of here and now that we all know is a fact. It's a fact, it's not a theory. So even the most ignorant person knows they're conscious. So bhavana, in this case, is beginning to trust in this awareness, trust in awareness. And this consciousness is not personal. It's anatta. That's it. It's not about Ajahn Sumedho or any of you as separate persons. It's what we're all experiencing at this moment, the reality that everybody here, the consciousness we experience here and now, that we all know, is impersonal. To make it personal, I have to start thinking. I start operating from the fact that I'm sitting here and you're sitting there. And on taking all this very personally, then I can, I'm a teacher, I'm an Ajahn, and I'm an elderly monk, and I've got all kinds of identities that operate in the worldly way. But if I operate from I'm an old monk, if I operate from that, what am I going to say? Talk about my bad vision, about my liver, about what it's like to get eye injections every 6 weeks, what it's like to have your feet feel like you're wearing army boots even when you're in bed. I'll tell you about my blood pressure and about, how it is to be old and kind of retired old monk in a kuti, I can create a whole scenario of images about how I, as a personality, experience and relate to old age. But what good is that? It's usually about complaining. Because there's a lot to complain about when you're old. And so, you notice sometimes when you go visit old people, all they can do is grumble or complain. Because old age creates these emotions of grumbling and complaining. The experience of old age is not something, that just physically, it's not enjoyable. So if you operate from the identity like being an Ajahn, being a senior monk, if this is one's identity, then that's a very personal sense of importance. That I'm an elderly monk. I have a posh title from the Thai king. I'm a disciple of Ajahn Chah, and on like that. That's oftentimes what you're left with in old age is talking about your past or your achievements, or your mistakes, your guilt, your fear about death. So old age is not to be taken personally. So taking a stand with awareness, that doesn't grow old. Consciousness doesn't age. So from consciousness, pure conscious awareness is the refuge that is available here and now to all of us all the time, whatever age you might be. And it's to realize this for yourself. So consciousness is unitive. It's the same for all of us. It unites every single one of us. All the monks, nuns, lay people, with the Russians, the Ukrainians, with the Republicans, with the Tories. All these are conditioned, phenomenal activities that go on, but what unites all creation, where creation manifests, is in consciousness. So that's the liberation. You realize your true nature is eternal, apparent here and now, timeless, conscious awareness. And what you think you are is very impermanent. Whatever you believe you are, or how you see yourself in judgment, good or bad, right or wrong, it's all very, it changes. Just like changing an attitude toward a Buddha Rupa, from being a judgmental figure from above to being a blessing, an icon of blessing. So how you want to look at a Buddha Rupa, you can say, well, at the time of the Buddha, there were no Buddha Rupas. And they came several hundred years after he passed away. And you can be a purist, getting back to the real Buddhism of ancient India, the pure, unadulterated, uncorrupted Buddhism that we think we believe in. But the Buddha, actually, in this tradition that we revere, respect, of ancient India, his teaching is what we have. The Four Noble Truths. And that's a teaching that is encouraging awareness, not belief. It's not about believing, it's not dogmatic. It's about giving us the right to investigate experience as we experience it. The witnessing position of experience isn't an experience. Consciousness is not an experience. It's the reality of here and now, which is not experienced. But when we identify with experiences, then we always are going outward toward, looking at what we're going to do next after winter retreat, and all kinds of looking forward to experiences that we can imagine. But we experience through the senses, through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, the mind. And this is all about change and suffering. So time and space are experiences. Space itself, what came first, matter or space? How many scientists ask themselves this question? And the materialist view oftentimes is matter is our reality, because the physical bodies and so forth, they seem more solid. Space doesn't have any solidity to it. It's everywhere, just taken for granted. But it's here and now. We can actually perceive it. And is space good or bad? Now, there's a space in the temple. Is this say it's a good space? It doesn't say anything. We say it's a good space or not a good space. Consciousness has no beginning or end. So it's where space and time manifest, is in consciousness. So we go back to the very source of our being. We're being conscious here and now. And it's more or less a patient listening, waiting, not, and beginning to be aware, accepting the way you are as it arises and ceases. So when we're talking about the beginning stages of meditation, where you sit and you just get all kind of confusion or anxiety or worry, or wondering whether you're wasting your time, or worrying about whether you can meditate or not, whether you're spiritually developed or maybe you're not. You can, after all these years, am I a stream enterer or an arahant? How can I become an arahant before I die? Or on and on like that. We take the words out of the scriptures and interpret them in a very personal way. So we take the very words of the Buddha and cling to those concepts. And that's not what the Four Noble Truths is about. It's not about clinging to the truths as concepts, but they're directional signs. Suffering and its causes, the end of suffering, and the way of living within these very mortal forms. We don't create suffering. We still experience old age, sickness, death through these forms, because that's the way the world is. People die, people we love, people we depend on. pass away. And these forms that we identify with are all going to die. And they get old, they get feeble, all kinds of problems because they're like an aging human body. You know, it's gone through so many years of oftentimes unwholesome behavior, or drinking too much, or taking drugs, or eating too much, or whatever, that naturally the body is not capable of renewing itself, of staying young. So the body's like this. It's a form in space. It's a time form. It's all about time and age. But when I let go of that identity, what's left, when I've let go of all phenomena, all conditions, is conscious awareness. And that doesn't age, doesn't get born, doesn't die. So consciousness is anatta, is not personal. In this way, anatta means not, as I was saying many times over about how we create this personal identification with life, with our thoughts, our beliefs, our bodies, our social position, our successes or failures. That's very personal. But consciousness, which is the reality of here and now, is impersonal. And it doesn't have a language. It's not dualistic. It's unitive, it's universal. It's where the universe, the sun, moon, and stars, the planet Earth, and we ourselves arise and cease, manifest, and disappear. So that's the way it is. This is what we can actually know. We can know this through this Dhamma Vichaya, which is investigating. Sati, Dhamma Vichaya, the two first factors of enlightenment, is taking this stand in awareness to the present as the way it is. So be patient with you who are interested in meditation or who have been practicing meditation. Let go of everything. You know, the conformity of the Sangha is a blessing because it is not personal. We take it personally, like who's work monk or work nun or head monk or abbot or teacher, or, so these, we, because of the way we're conditioned, we tend to take our position in a Sangha in a very personal way. And there's always going to be suffering as a result of that. With all the blessings of the Buddhas and the apparent the teachings available and encouraged to investigate and find out for yourself, we oftentimes end up seeing ourselves in terms of status, position, title, which is missing the whole point of this life. So I offer this as a reflection.